Hi, and welcome to this demonstration. I'm going to show you how to draw real people in real places. And here's some examples from my sketchbook. These were made at Cesar Chavez Park in San Jose. Um, I spent about an hour down there and I probably got 10 pages of drawings like this. Nothing that you're looking at took longer than 30 or 40, 50 seconds tops to draw. As you can see, people are walking. They're not posing for me. Occasionally you find someone sitting at a bench, so you have a little bit more time, but usually you don't. The advantage to this is that it teaches you to see these key shapes really rapidly and to get them noted quickly. It's about visual acuity and learning to see what you need to see in a subject as rapidly as you can. And this will really help you. And it also really helps you see gesture and learn to draw quickly without erasing. There's no or little erasing in any of these drawings. You just don't have that kind of time when people aren't posing for you. So I'm going to talk about some methodology here. This isn't a homework assignment. I'm not going to insist that you do it, so it's on you to do if you wish, but if you want to get better, you'll at least give this a try. I'm going to put up a new layer now. Got a little brush that's not really a pencil. I'm working in Photoshop, so I can't really simulate a pencil drawing, but I'll do the best I can. One thing I'll tell you is that if you're going to do this, you need to be able to draw to a shape. So I'm just drawing a diamond here, and then I'm drawing a square, and now I'm drawing another square, and now I'll try a crescent. That's not that good. I'll do it again. This is a funny little brush I got. Maybe a circle like that, and of course I think I can get at a triangle. And what you do is you teach yourself this. I think I have maybe a little bit more control with a pencil, but not a lot. And you'll notice that I'm not doing this and doing this and doing this and then trying to fill in and outlining it and doing all these things to accomplish this shape and doing little bits and pieces like that. I really want you to try to teach yourself to control this as best as you can. And the way that I do this is to just make some shapes at the top of my page, a crescent like this. I can barely do this within Photoshop. A square, some other shapes, maybe an oval, and then I come down below them and I just try to recreate them the way that I see them, and I keep working this right on down the page until I feel like I'm starting to accomplish it a little better. The important thing is to work all the way from one side to another and make yourself fill in that shape and really try to control where those things start and stop. A little more difficult, as I said, in Photoshop because there's a little lag between my hand on the Wacom and what I actually see on the screen, but I think if I just kept at it after a while, I get a little better at it. And you do this page after page after page. I don't know, I think it's fun and interesting. I like to know that I can do it. What that does is if I have a section, somebody's head, and I want to fill that in really rapidly, then I can. Or say their torso, then I'm there really quickly. And that's all I need to worry about. So I'm switching out brushes now, and I'm going to start talking about some things that are going to be important for you if you're going to draw real people out there who aren't posing. One thing is you have to know the skeleton. And I've switched out brushes here a little bit, something a little bit more like a pencil. You kind of have to know these proportions. You have to be able to anticipate what's going to happen when people aren't posing for you. So just having a good reasonable working knowledge of the skeleton, being able to move it in a couple different directions. Just like this, it's really not much more than a scribble drawing in its way. Will be to your advantage. And we talk a lot about the skeleton in class, and so this shouldn't be rocket science for you. I think the other thing is you need to anticipate posture and gesture. You need to know what's going on with a given pose before you begin to draw. And there are tricks to this which I'll talk about in a couple of minutes. Your notation of the figure must be preconceived. In other words, you have to be prepared to use the same notation for different parts of the figure all the time. If I'm drawing somebody's head, it's going to basically be an oval shape. I'm going to know where the ear is, where the nose is. If I can see both ears, then I know that the person's looking looking at me. If I can't, then they're looking in one direction. It's going to be something like this. And I'm going to use this shape all the time. Here's a location of where the eyes are. There's the nose, another ear, another ear. And that's how the head's going to work for me. I'll actually think of the torso as sort of a flattened box. So here's a box. I'll shade one side. Remember I said I could fill in without having to outline, and that's kind of a three-quarter view. Here's the center line of a torso. Obviously it's going to change. You're going to see different things, and people are generally going to be wearing clothes. But if you can think of it in these terms, then you can get from the top of the shoulders to the bottom of the hem of the shirt or the pant line pretty quickly. I also think of the legs as a single shape when possible. I don't try to draw one leg and another leg. So if I see the single shape, then all I have to do later on is this much and fill it in, and I'm back in business. I'm right where I want to be on this stuff. Get to the values as quickly as you can. Don't rely solely on line work. Work small, don't worry about mistakes, limit your erasers, or don't erase at all. And develop your drawing from light to dark, so add detail as time permits. So if I have a person and they're standing waiting to cross the street, maybe they have their arms folded, I'm going to see this as a value and a shape. I'm going to look down to the bottom of their shirt or whatever they might be wearing. I'm going to think about how their one hip might be over here. I'm really working from imagination right now, I'm not looking at anybody. And now I'll get one foot in front of the other. And you can see that I'm sort of scribbling this drawing together. I know pretty much how I'm going to work this. I know what I'm going to do. And then if the person, or if I'm lucky and the light stays there, we'll get them looking down here a little bit. If the light stays and they can't move, the light's still red, they can't cross the street, now I can come back in and I can think about some detail work as I see it. You'll notice I'm not erasing at all, and hopefully I won't have to erase even once in this entire demonstration, but I'll start getting a little movement out to the hips, a little something here, a little darker there. I'll pull this leg now behind. I'll get a little darkness at the knee, and that's my drawing. That's however many seconds that was. It doesn't take very long if you stay loose. You can fix these things if the person still remains in place. Draw with a light hand. Everybody I know, all my students always draw really dark. And I'm not sure why that is exactly, but sometimes you're just going to have to settle down, lighten up what you're doing. Just draw nice and easy, simple shapes, a triangle for the foot in this case. We're going to put their head up. We'll get an ear, we'll get a nose, we'll get them looking back at me because that's what people tend to do. I'll put a hat on him now. And again, same thing. Nice and relaxed, light hand. Look hard at what you're doing and get a memory of the pose, because the model will move without regard to you, and it's useful if you can train yourself to remember what you saw. Then sometimes you can finish these drawings after the model has already gone. Here I am, just going to fill that in, and now it looks like a second foot back there, and we all know what a bench looks like, so I can put that in pretty readily without a reference. This would actually go that way, and so on. Be economical with your marks. Don't fuss. Occasionally draw from memory. So you look at the figure, you look away, you try to remember what it was that you saw, and draw it as completely as you can. Remember, these drawings are only going to take you a few seconds. So if you don't get it right, it's not the end of the world. There's nothing, it's nothing bad to say about you. Let's put some sunglasses on this guy. You just try again. Okay? Practice visualizing and drawing a walk, a run, a fall, catching a heavy object, pulling a stuck door, anything that creates some movement in the figure. And that's going to be fun for you too, but you won't know how to do these things until you've observed them a little while. I'm going to fix this a little bit now, some short sleeves. There we go. And let's move on to some new drawings. So tricks. First thing we talk about all the time, it's this profile posture. It looks like this. People tend to relax. Their spine turns into a spring right here. And so they tend to make this shape that we've talked about as a gestural shape, and it looks like this. We have this shape, and then we have this entire S-curve shaped, and you should just flat out know how to do this. In this case, I'm going to just run right down the pant leg. I'm going to put a shoe in here. We'll talk about feet in a moment. I'll come quickly back to the head so I know where I'm going. Put an ear in, sense of a nose. That's good for now. I guess I'm drawing these big hat heads today, so I'll do another one, and so on. So I've got this posture, and I can draw it all the time. If a person moves, they twist their top of their body a little bit towards me. It's really easy to move with it and to show this far shoulder now. I'll put his hand down in his pocket so it doesn't look too ridiculous. And then the head would move forward with that. So the head's going to come back up here as that occurs. This profile posture is a very big deal for learning how to do this stuff. Look for the flat parts in the body. So here I am looking at things that might be flat, like along the back of the trapezius, the shoulder blade. This tends to flatten out sometimes. I'll come back in here and define this again. That could be flat. Anything that I think is going to be flat, like this, back of the spine, the area between the shoulder blades right down to anatomical waist, which is right there. I'm going to look to see if these things are flat. And I'm also going to have ideas about other postures. When somebody's, for example, if somebody's sitting down, cross-legged, I'm looking for a gesture that says, well, those legs are crossed, and there it is. So the knees are up, the legs are crossed, there's a foot right here. I'm going to look for that. I'm going to say, well, his hands are resting on his knees. And that may be all I get to. If I can get a little further, I'm going to look for lights and darks, and I'm just going to see how much definition I can bring to this, but I'm going to do the same thing that I always do, which is to say, which way is he facing? I'll make a little notation for a nose. Is there a hairstyle that I can use? Maybe, maybe not. Is there a collar? The longer I have with a person, the more detailed these drawings can become. And when it's time to fill in value, I go all the way across the shape like that, and that'll give me those values that I need to have. As far as feet go, the notation is fairly simple. In a profile, a foot in a shoe looks pretty much like this. It's just a triangle. I have a lot of students who want this to happen with shoes. They want some kind of bulbous toe on the shoe. And guys, I do not want you to do that. Please don't do that to me ever. Just do this. You won't have time for more than that. There's going to be a cuff if they're wearing pants, and that tends to slope from top front to the bottom in the back. It goes this direction. That's fairly reliable. If you're looking at the shoe from the front, again, it's really kind of a triangle. If it has what they call the tongue or laces, I put that in really quickly, and that's a nice indicator. And then I just note where's the toe, the top of the toe of the shoe, and then where's the sole. And I tend to draw the sole as a curve. This is a comic book artist's trick. It sort of signifies that the toe of the shoe is coming up a little at the end, as shoes do. If there's heels, if there's stuff like that, it's going to require more observation from you. And it's also going to require a bit more time than you really have. So if that's the case, then chances are you're going to have to sit there and just do a study of somebody's shoe instead of doing their entire person. I've talked about the head a bunch so far. Let's do it a little more slowly. This is it. And here's the shoulder. I'll put this guy in a three-quarter pose. That's the center line. I'm going to make them look right at you. So I made a sensation of where their nose is. Sometimes I'll do a little sensation of eyes, just like this. Nothing much. Often I don't. If they're wearing glasses, that's useful too. The ears are going to be just about there, and if you can see both ears, that means that the person's looking at you. If you can't, then they're looking away. You know, as I've said before, if there's a hairstyle that I think I can draw rapidly, in it goes. If not, I don't sweat it. This is much more time than I normally get to spend on somebody's face, but I do like to know where they're pointing. Here's a nose, here's an ear. And as I said, if they have a hairstyle that I think I can use, here's a crazy one, then in it goes. And that's about all I'm going to do. Often I won't have even time to put in like exactly where the neck is, and that's okay. You can leave it out. It's not going to harm your drawing if you don't draw an entire neck. As far as, well, let's talk about the forearm. When people sit, they sit like this, they tend to curve forward. If you go to a food court, you're going to see this posture a lot. Their knees are going to go back and you're going to put a little wiggle there right behind their knee. That's going to represent the sort of folds around the knee where the fabric gets bunched together. Their feet are going to be like this, forward. Sometimes they'll be on their toes a little bit if they're short. That's what I'm going to do right now. So I have the leg, and what people do is they sit, and here's the head. Someone looking down a little bit, and they'll put their arms right inside the leg like that. It's just natural. It's just how people ordinarily sit. So you look for this shape, whatever version of this shape you might see. Here's our little table where somebody could be reading a newspaper or whatever else they might be doing. This is what you're going to see. If one foot's further back, that's drawn as an entirety of shape like this. And you'll get the idea quite rapidly what's going on in here. In this position, the forearm, remember, is just essentially a triangle. There's nothing fancy about that. I tend to darken a little bit under the elbow just to show a turn from this direction to further back inside the knee. When standing, you think of the forearm as a round or conical shape at the elbow and flat at the wrist. And as I said, when people stand, here's that gesture. We'll put a shirt or something on this guy, short sleeve. We're going to come from here, sort of a cone shape, and people tend to stand with their hands a little back, a little tipped back from, here's the direction of the arm, and the hand kind of moves back at that shape when they're just standing in a relaxed way. Again, here's the head. We're going to say, hey, he just noticed me. He's looking back, wondering what I'm doing, and if I don't hurry up and finish, sometimes they'll come walking right over, and that's okay. You just don't want to make a big deal out of it. If they say, what are you doing? I usually say, I'm drawing that guy behind you. Sometimes they want to look, and that can be a distraction, but you'll figure it out. It can be really fun to draw in public. Hands, you can see. I'm not going to get myself worked up about it. I'm just going to draw an essential shape and try to get a sense of what's going on with the fingers. If somebody's standing there, often their hands are in their pockets, or their arms are folded or something else. If they're holding a briefcase, it's a simple notation. There's a shape like this. Top of the hand, that briefcase handle is going to come through like this, and you might see a small sensation of the thumb, and that's all you really do. I'll shade in these fingers to show that they're tipped under the handle of that briefcase or whatever it might be, and that's all there is to it. If they're leaning and I can get a chance to draw their hand, I'm looking for the direction of the arm and then a different direction of the hand in this case. Sensation of some fingers, maybe a thumb, and honestly, that's all you're really ever going to have to do in a drawing. These are very small drawings, and as you can see, you just don't see them very much. There's not a lot to be done, but you do want to try to get at the essential shape of what's occurring here. What else? Legs we've talked about. I've told you when you have the opportunity that you want to come after the legs as a complete shape. So here's a person in a long shirt. Here's their head. I'm just starting this drawing. They're turned a little bit towards me with their body, a little bit away from me with their legs, and I'm going to draw this gesture right on down, and I'm going to see it as a whole shape. I'm not filling this in because I don't really need to. Now I can start differentiating back leg from front leg. I'll start showing you that there's a foot down here facing me and another foot that's not facing me. And in this case, just for simplicity's sake, again, I'll put the hand down there in the pocket. Here's a cue, or something that I think is useful when you're doing storyboard art, and this is very good practice for boards. Put little buckles in the pants. I don't mean a silver buckle, I mean a little buckling of the fabric right around the knee, like that. Then do it again down here at the cuff of the pant. You can see it here as well, where the fabric of the shirt is gathering and relaxed. put a little buckle in there just to show that that's what's occurring. And that's a good habit to make for yourself because it's different. When you draw this kind of thing for pants and you're drawing outlines and you're trying to get your storyboarded figures done and you don't do that, it just doesn't look as well. But if you come down here and you go, whoops, there's a little something there and we're coming across now, and here I am at the knee and the same thing's occurring. Now a little darker here and this thing's a little darker. Now I've got something. It's no harder to draw. In fact, it's easier to draw. And it just looks better. When drawing a figure, look for the shadows to go from head to toe and draw the entire shadow. So if I have a shadow over here on this guy, it's going to come all the way up. And become accustomed to just drawing the entire thing as you see it, instead of putting it in bit by bit the way people do. Hand and arms move opposite of the legs. So if I'm walking or my figure's walking, let's see, I better do that smaller. Here's a figure walking across the lawn. They've got a long shirt on. Their their right hand is moved back. That means that their right leg is coming forward. You will get used to the way different legs move as people walk. In this case, this guy's moving fast, so his other arm is coming forward. Again, you can see it. His right leg is forward. I'm going to modify that shape a little bit. That means his left arm is forward and his right arm is back. And that's the way you'll see it. You've already seen it. You know these things. But what you have to do is train yourself. This guy, I'm going to make him walk even faster now. Train yourself to catch someone in their walk and to remember enough of what you see when you're seeing it that you can follow those movements and use what they're doing to make your drawing. And this won't happen unless you know, before you go into it, what's going on. You have to be able to do this all by yourself. The last thing I'll say is just don't ever draw outlines. I see this figure in storyboards way too often where people do this and then they make this guy and they're trying to get him to behave and get him to just move, walk through a scene, and it kind of looks like this, and there's some version of a hand, and it's incredibly depressing to look at. It doesn't look well, even when drawn carefully. It just doesn't work, and it's so much easier to just come in here, get the walk. Here's my character. I'm going to pull him across. I know he's got posture. I know I'm going to move the near leg back now. And I'm moving at this pace, not quite as fast of a walk. There's the shoe. He just noticed me. He decided he would stop and say, "Hello there. How's it going?" That's kind of the hang loose symbol I made him do there, accidentally. This figure can be drawn much more lightly. You will have an eraser handy so you can fix it if you want. But do you see the difference? I mean, there's just really no comparison. Get out there and draw people who aren't posing for you. I recommend you go somewhere where people are hanging out. The food court at the mall is a good place. Parks are a good place. Even the library. And just sit there and draw if you draw for 20 minutes, you're going to have at least 20 drawings. And that's going to be my recommendation to you. Okay, I hope this helps. I know it was a little long, but suffer through it and good luck.